Recording will start soon. Hopefully sooner rather than later. All right. Fingers crossed. Hopefully, maybe holding. Right. So, like I said, it's interesting. You know, we're doing the first meeting in physical confines in a very, very long time. So, lots of projections on attendance. Who's going to be here? Who's going to be online? First of all, to everybody, thank you. You are why Tri-HDI exists. Regional leadership and a board can only do so much. Frankly, only get so bored putting on things for ourselves. We tried this in April of 2021 and had a pretty good turnout. September of 2021, we did this, but that was all virtual. So this is kind of our first opportunity in physical space, people coming together. So thank all of you here in the room and all of you watching online. Now, being our first meeting back, I want to be careful about how I put this. The chapter kind of fell into a state of idleness for a while. I picked it up back in the summer of 2020. I reached out to Tamika Fudge, who was the regional leader at the time. What's up with the chapter? At that point in time, I was still working at Away Tech. I wanted to kind of pair the chapter to my degree program and give students an opportunity to network and meet with people. And she said, yeah, the chapter's on life support. And the next thing I know, after a meeting, three of us, I walked out with the chapter presidency somehow. We had a treasurer, we had a vendors person, and I wound up with the presidency. And it's been an uphill climb, especially in all things COVID time right now. Tamika Fudge moved up and was replaced by Christy Lawrence. So we definitely want to give her thanks. She has given us lots of valuable information. Likewise, John Pierce, who was a previous chapter president, who's kind of been hanging on the side, providing guidance where and when. I do want to thank our board. One person is here. One person is here but not here, and one person's remote. So I will start with our remote person first. Crystal Henry in West Virginia is our communications person. So a lot of the things that you see going out on social media is coming from her. England Corliss is our membership and secretary, board member. She's kind of wearing two hats, gracefully so, by her own choice. And then finally, Richard Kelso, who is here with us, is our VP of programs, and myself, chapter president. So the very first thing that I want to say is we are looking for a treasurer. Right now, Jake McSwain is one who's actually a founder. There were three of us in that first meeting that we all kind of came together. So when Jake was there, he has moved out of the area. He has graciously been sticking around in his role, getting emails and texts from me. But we would like, if we could, myself included, find somebody local. So if you are in the Raleigh area, in the Triangle area, and you are interested, please grab me afterwards. I would love to have some conversations with you. A few more things. It is awards season. The local chapter officers actually had a call on this afternoon. Information will be going out both via email and via LinkedIn. If you know somebody who just exemplifies fantastic tech support and service, this is your opportunity to nominate them for an award. So I'm not going to sit through what we did in the chapter meeting. I'll simply say it is award season. It is time for nominations. More information will be going out. So if you know somebody, this is the time to give them a nudge, to give them a love, to give them a recommendation. So please keep an eye on LinkedIn. Please keep an eye on your email. Likewise, a survey will be going out, both for those of you who are here and those of you who are online. We want your feedback. You know, at the end of the day, I consistently told the board this. We are here for you. This is your chapter. We are simply the custodians who are curating it, taking care of it, making it grow. We want to hear from you. What do you want to see? And this is a topic that we talked about in the board meeting several times. How can we provide you value? But right now, I have locked horns with district leadership. We are not charging dues. Doesn't seem fair. We had 2 virtual meetings last year. This is our first physical meeting. We will have a 4th quarter physical meeting, and then in 2023, we can start talking about returning to dues once we know that there's not yet another virus that's going to shut everything down and then send us scurrying back to our houses. So what I want to know and what the rest of the board wants to know is, what do you all want to see? What is going to give you value? What is going to give you the incentive? So when we do say it's time to start talking about dues, you're willing to pay and you're actually going to get something of value in return for that. So with that having been said, I'm still working with our stakeholders. So first and foremost, I want to give a huge thank you to Robert Half, because this right now is happening because of Robert Half, the space, the food, everything. They have been fantastic supports and nurturers with regards to just kind of helping us put a chapter back together. Our next meeting will be happening in November, either November 2nd or November 9th. So kind of put placeholders on those Wednesdays. Again, the closer we get, information will go out. We're not quite there yet. So I would like to hand the meeting over to our guest speaker, our first guest speaker of this new era. Albert Myles is a knowledge program manager at Red Hat. He actually worked with me back when I was at Wake Tech. He came into my capstone class one night and talked to my students about all things knowledge management. And of course, we know if you've ever been on the receiving end of a call where the previous agent took no notes, took nothing, that's a bad thing. Likewise, if you have a day 0 episode show up and you have nothing to fall back on to see if anything is there, obviously you feel that pain of lack of knowledge management. So I would like to hand this over to Albert. Albert, welcome.
Thanks, everyone. Let's talk about driving innovation with knowledge management, shall we? Before I get started, I just want to ask a couple of questions for you. You don't have to answer out loud. You don't have to raise your hand or anything. I just want you to think about these so that we can just making sure the monitor is working. All right. So how many of y'all integrate knowledge management into your everyday workflow? Think about that for a second. Now, how many of you use knowledge management to actively drive value throughout your organization? And then thirdly, how many of you use knowledge management to actively drive innovation throughout your organization? So how many people actually just integrate knowledge management, and how many people drive value, and then how many people drive innovation throughout your organization? All right. So first off, who am I? As Matt said, I am the knowledge program manager at Red Hat. That's a fancy way of saying that I am running a knowledge management program. We're actually currently building a knowledge management system. We're rebuilding a knowledge management system for all of Red Hat's support. I started my career at Red Hat as a knowledge domain expert. And if you know what KCS is, then you know what a knowledge domain expert is. If you don't know what KCS is, then knowledge domain expert basically means that I sort of help to curate the content, help to sew together some of the solutions to create high value content, things like that. I did that for about almost a year, and then I moved on to my current position where I was charged with trying to make sure that our technical documentation department played nicely with our support documentation, which is a tall task if you know anything about that. So I've spent the last maybe 3 years trying to do that. And so I've kind of got that launched, and I've kind of set it to sailing. And now I've moved on to actually rebuilding our entire knowledge management system at Red Hat. And believe me, it's like rebuilding an airplane while it's in flight. So It's a lot of fun. So I've spent 15 years doing knowledge management. I have done things from building a KMS system from scratch all the way up to writing an enterprise class knowledge management system. And just had fun doing it all. What you're gonna hopefully that you're gonna see while I'm talking about this, that this is kind of my passion and I get really excited about it. So I hope we're gonna have a good time here. So and then lastly, I'm married to my wonderful wife and we live in the Triangle area. And we've been here for a few years now. And I think this is probably where we're gonna stay for a while. So I'm excited about that. Now, first, fair warning, there's a lot here, and I'm going to really kind of start at a high level and keep it at a high level because each of these areas that I'm going to talk about, those could be their own separate talk, and you don't want to really, I mean, we'll be here all night if I start to get into any kind of crazy detail. But let's start with a working definition of knowledge management. Knowledge management means a lot of different things, and it's a huge area to think about. So I just want to narrow it down a little bit. Knowledge management, as we're relating it here, is the capture, the structure, and the distribution of product-based knowledge throughout an organization. And I want to stress the product-based because a lot of folks use knowledge management internally. You know, your IT department might use it, your legal department might use it, HR. We're really going to focus today on product-based things, and that's when you go to a website and you're looking at their like, say you went to Verizon's website and you're looking at their knowledge base there. Those are the types of things, and you're looking up how do I fix my Verizon problem, or how do I fix my Dell problem, or how do I fix my HP problem. Those are the types of things we're going to look for here. So I just wanted to set that expectation. Now, let's move on. So let's start with integrating our knowledge management into our workflow. So first off, I want to kind of give the idea that we want to make sure that everything that we're doing, that we're actually integrating it into our workflow. And that means that using, doing things like documenting KCS. If you don't know what KCS is Knowledge Center Services. It's a whole other thing, but it's just an industry standard for service organizations to capture knowledge. It's really deep. There's all kinds of certifications around it. If you want to know more about it, you can ask me afterwards. But I'll mention it. I'll mention KCS a few times throughout. But and some of the things that I use here come straight from KCS. Some are like KCS, the CSI, the governing group will probably yell at me for saying it, but oh well. But the idea is that you want to be able to capture the knowledge as part of your workflow. You want it to be as important as anything else. So capturing knowledge is as important as answering your customers' questions. This becomes important because when things are great and your call volume is level and you don't have a lot of deadlines, nothing's on fire, it's pretty simple to go ahead and capture what you just learned when you solved the case, or when your engineers just created a new widget. It's easy to go ahead and document stuff. But when things get a little bit hairy, it really starts to become more and more difficult to do KCS or do knowledge management if it's not part of your workflow and it's not deemed as important. So if your call volume goes up, knowledge management is going to be the first thing to go. If you start hitting some deadlines and some crazy fires happen, knowledge management is going to be the first to go. And that becomes a problem because you're going to start losing a lot of the tacit knowledge that's inside folks' head when you're starting to really move forward in growing and things like that. So you want to make sure that it's part of your day-to-day operations, and that has to come from leadership, really. So when you're in your one-on-ones with your managers and your support engineer, and they're talking case closure, time to resolution, and then maybe they mention knowledge management at the very end. Of course, your engineers aren't really going to focus as much on knowledge management if they know that it's not really part of the job. It's just kind of an add-on. So I really want to stress that you want to try to get as much into the workflow as you can. That's one of the things that KCS, and this isn't an ad for KCS, by the way. It's one of the things that KCS stresses is that it's an entire workflow built around capturing knowledge. So, next thing, so I wanted to kind of revisit the whole constraints of knowledge management. So, again, if you've turned up the volume and you've kind of got all volumes kind of spiking, or you've got some fires going on, knowledge management really becomes the first thing to go. And it's bad because you don't want to, if you make it part of your entire workflow, it becomes just the same thing as, like I said earlier, answering the phone. And you don't really want to lose all of that information. And the reason why it becomes really important is this piece here, is the body of knowledge. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to collect an entire thing. What does company A know about their entire product catalog? So what do we know about it? And what happens is when you start collecting all of these things, you start understanding that if I want to know, like in Red Hat, if I want to know everything about OpenShift, I should be able to kind of go in and look and say, I know everything there is to know about installing OpenShift on a Dell server, running on top of another hypervisor from AWS or something. So I should be able to find all of that information instantly and quickly. And also, what happens is once you get your entire body of knowledge, you're able to start adding value. And this is where it starts getting really fun. So let's just say that we've got a knowledge management program up and running. And we're starting to see that customers are happy because they're able to self-serve, they're able to find their problems, answers to their problems. Your support engineers are able to get customers back up and running quickly. Things are going great. We can see there's value, but how much is that worth? So this is where we want to start measuring our value. And this is something that a lot of companies are doing in different ways. But this is the kind of the way that I'm going to try to tackle it here. So let's just say we have our friends in product management. They have an idea for a new on-off switch for their new computer. And this is a bit of a complex on-off switch, but they think that it's going to work. So they talk it over with their development, and development says, okay, we're in. And so the engineers, they create this light switch, and they actually start installing it into their new computers. They send that, how it works, engineering sends it to documentation. Now, so documentation structures it, and they make it presentable. Now, that piece of knowledge of how this light switch works, how much is that worth? Because it's no longer in anyone's head. So we've actually got it codified in a piece of written knowledge. How much is that worth at that point? Now, let's move on to, let's say documentation has published everything out, and we've released the computer and it's out in the wild and the customers have seen it. So now the customers are using it and the customers are having problems. And so they go to the customer portal and they're able to find information around that light switch. It's still the stuff the development created, but the customer is actually able to find it. This is how the on-off switch works. So you've got that piece of knowledge, and now how much is it worth? Because the customers are actually able to use it. How much more is it worth than it was before before it was actually published out and used? Then you go into technical support. And so let's say there's a few customers that still can't figure out how the on-off switch works. So they call in the customer support, and customer support is able to take the customer's problem and they're able to add context to this problem. So they're saying, hey, this on-off switch, it works most of the time, but in these particular situations, it doesn't work in the way that it's expected. So they add an extra layer around the original knowledge, and they're giving it some context, and you're able to see that, hey, in specific situations, it behaves differently. How much is that knowledge worth? So you've got a different level of knowledge. It's worth a little bit different at that point. So, and then, so you've documented everything in the knowledge base, and you've got this higher value than technical documentation. It's more experiential, where the technical documentation was intentional. This is how it was designed support's created this documentation around this knowledge that says that this is how it actually works in the real world. So you've got this information about this on-off switch, and then you've moved into how the on-off switch interacts with other pieces of the computer and all kinds of different things. How does it affect the volume switch? How does it, you got different kinds of questions that are starting to come in around how, this on-off switch did this over here. And you're starting to collect all these things, and you're starting to send them together, and you're starting to get this high value content. So you're able to frequently ask questions. You're able to publish out troubleshooting documents. You're going to have index articles. So this is where, this is what the KCS will call this the evolve loop. But so once you've started adding this this extra value to it, how much more is that worth at that point? So what we're able to do is, once we're adding a value proposition to a piece of knowledge, and how much is it worth if it's in different areas, and how much is it worth if customers are able to find it quickly? What happens when they're able to? What happens when they're not able to find it? We're able to start adding a time-based value to some of this stuff. And what that means is that suddenly this big cost center that we all know and support is able to start saying, hey, we're actually able to give some value back to the rest of the company. And honestly, I'm gonna be using this system to kind of start paying some of our bills in the team that I'm on. So it's just a way to say, hey, we all know that everyone can tell you that knowledge management is important if you work anywhere in IT and anywhere in support, and it. But how much is it worth, and what kind of number can you start assigning? So we're really looking for that, so we can start taking that, knowing what kind of value we're driving back into the organization. So keep that in mind when we're talking about innovation now. So we've got this great knowledge management system we're building. We've developed a knowledge value analysis here. We're doing all kinds of things. But so what else can we do? Well, there are several things. If you do have a system that allows you to link your knowledge-based articles to your support cases, you're going to be able to do things like find out, well, what kind of customer pain are we seeing? So if you're seeing a lot of cases around the big red button in the middle of the screen that says, don't press this red button, but a lot of customers are pressing the red button, then you're going to know that, hey, maybe this is something that we need to work on elsewhere. If you've got, if we know that, if we're looking at linked cases and we're seeing a lot of volume around things, that when you upgrade, that 2 days later you see a spike in cases, and that these types of solutions are written. Maybe you start pre-populating the knowledge base with certain things to kind of predict some of the things that are going to happen. So you can know all kinds of stuff when you're linking that you can find out. You can mine how many different problems around installations that you've got. You can do all kinds of stuff with linking. It's a lot of fun, and I really enjoy it, working with it. It takes a lot of work, though. You really have to kind of understand your whole system really well, and you have to really kind of be able to dig in. You have to have a robust linking system. Thankfully, if you're using something like Salesforce or something like that, they've got a lot of that built in for you, and so it's pretty easy to do it. Now, web analytics activities. Web activity analytics, excuse me. So that's for things like what are customers searching for and they're not finding? We call that a knowledge gap analysis, and that's really important. Because if customers are searching for certain things and are not able to find it, then what's the point of having it? So a customer searching for, in Red Hat's case, they're searching for RHEL installation on a HP server. We've got the documentation, but they can't find it. It doesn't do us any good. So, and then when they find the knowledge, how effective is it? And this can all be fed back into tech docs and support. We're doing a thing now where it's a findability dashboard that we're working on. And I'm guessing that my colleague JP Sherman has given me permission to talk about this out loud. It's new, so we haven't really Oh, well. But what it is it's a dashboard that's going to look at our volume of our content, and it will kind of look at in the entirety of our content, or it will look by product, or it will look by knowledge area, or it will look by different use cases, and it will tell you this is your findability of this group of content is X out of 100, or your findability of this one single document is X out of 100. So you'll be able to kind of see based on certain keywords, this document is findable 20% of the time, or it's findable 90% of the time. And then what we'll do is we'll use that eventually, and we'll start crunching those numbers with machine learning. And then so hopefully when people are writing the content, they'll be able to see they'll be able to kind of guess what the findability of the content you're writing is. And it'll give them, and this tool will be able to give them suggestions of changes that they can make. So, that's a way that we're trying to drive innovation back into the company is when we're creating this content. Now, here comes the fun part. This is my favorite part, and I'm not talking about this part. The using what we're learning from our knowledge, collective knowledge, to really inform changes in the design of products or improve the design of products themselves. So let's go back to the big red button in the middle of the page, and it says, "Don't press this red button." And if a bunch of people are pressing the red button, maybe then product management, we can wrap back to product management and they say, "Hey, maybe we should change the color to green, or maybe we should just remove the button altogether." So we're able to kind of see that if a whole bunch of customers are having problems installing your software, and they're getting stuck at a certain place, then maybe that can goes back to your developers to say, maybe we need to rework the user experience on this. Or if we're finding out that the security settings aren't as intuitive as we thought they were, then we can get all of that from what customers are searching for and the cases that are linked and things like that, that we can drive that information back. And even more exciting from my perspective is if you have, if product management really looks at the knowledge management results first when they're trying to develop new products. So if we know that all of the products out on the market are all suffer from one thing, and that, and especially our product, customers are complaining about this one thing a lot. If we use that to develop new products, then that could really drive innovation a whole bunch. And that's one of the things that I'm trying to really kind of push in at Red Hat and say, hey, we've got all this information that we could mine. Let's start mining it and really make our customers happy and really kind of close the salute a little bit. So what happens now? First off, if this interests you at all, please socialize it. Take it back, talk to your friends, your colleagues and stuff. And I would love to hear from you, hear your ideas. If you like this stuff, if you don't like it, just let me know. If you think I'm full of it, just let me know. I'd love to hear what you all think about this stuff. Yeah, this is exciting to me. And, people that I work with, they see I get excited, so they get excited. And so, but I love talking about this stuff. And I want to know if you run into some of this stuff and you're saying, hey, well, it didn't really work like we thought it did, like we thought it would. Let me know. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. And I would love to talk to anyone. And I'll be here after this for a while, so you can ask me questions or you can tell me I'm wrong or whatever you want. Anyway, thank you all for your time. I really, really appreciate it. And I hope to hear from you all soon about all this.
Albert, thank you. Again, one more. All right, so that kind of brings us to the conclusion of everything. We didn't want to go great guns blazing for our first meeting back and trying to figure out attendance and pacing and everything else. We have a ton of mows out there. Please get more food. We have the room until 7:30. Please feel free to hang out, network, socialize. I will take this recording and I will put it somewhere so you can view it afterwards. Does anybody have final questions, final comments? Actually, Albert, would you be okay for Q&A?
Absolutely.
All right.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Anybody have questions for Albert?
Let me know.
Am I insane?
You absolutely are if you're in knowledge management, but
That's a different story.
I guess my question is, what's your primary mode of intake to determine that knowledge is actually needed? Are you looking at the ticket volumes that are coming through your service desk? Are you looking at, you mentioned some analysis on web traffic for things that couldn't be found. What's that top source?
Well, we really do subscribe to, so we are a KCS shop. And by definition with KCS is you document everything that comes in. So every time you solve a case, you either, if you didn't find it in the knowledge base first, when you search, then it's your responsibility to document it in the customer's words. So that's our primary directive when we're looking for new knowledge is, was this, so when someone had a question and it's not already answered somewhere, that's our impetus for putting in knowledge. Now, when we're doing this evolved loop stuff, now we're starting to look at, well, if a lot of customers are searching for things around a different area. So I'll give you an example. When we went from OpenShift 3.11 to 4.1, there was a lot of questions around a certain piece of, I think it was logging, and so because they completely rewrote the entire system. And so we ended up having to create a lot of articles around that, kind of explaining how the changes worked in the real world, because documentation had already done their work, but it still was confusing a lot of people. So we took that opportunity to say, okay, well, customers are having a lot of problems in this, and around logging. So let's take those and combine them together into like troubleshooting documents and things like that. So we were looking at case volume, and then we were looking at, well, what are customers searching for? But the problem that we had at Red Hat is that there was a lot of low intent searching. So that means that you would, customers would search for something like OCP 4.1 instead of I'm receiving error 36 when trying to install. So we had a whole lot of low intent searching. So it wasn't, so our gap analysis couldn't be really done as effectively as you would hope. So we really relied on case linking and customer calls. How many customers were calling in about this stuff. So that was the secondary driver. So the first one is everything that comes in gets documented, and we rely on the marketplace for search to say what's important because it rises to the top of the search results, and what's not important falls to the bottom. We're working on that too because our search it's not working out like we expected it to. And to be fair, CSI says that it should work, but as many companies as I've talked to, they all have problems with the whole let's not archive anything and let everything from 20 years ago stay in there. Everyone has problems with that. So we gave it a good try, and it's just the search engine. No one has Google for their search engine, right? So you just, we're really trying to revisit a lot of that stuff. So again, if Matt and Kelly from CSI see this, they're probably going to yell and be like, "What are you doing, Albert?" But oh well. What do you do?
So I video.
Did that answer your question?
It did. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes.
The findability program that y'all put up, what other ways do you see machine learning and AI affecting knowledge management?
Well, so one of the big things that we were working on, and Luna is actually on the call. She was our intern that was going to work on this. Is we were going to do a an audit of our entire knowledge content, our entire customer portal. And so we were just going to do a dump, and then we were going to try to organize it and do everything. But we were going to use machine learning to auto tag all of our content so that we knew it. So when humans tag stuff, it may or may not be right. But we were going to use this stuff to auto tag all of our content just so we could organize it out. And then what we would hopefully do is we would get enough data over time that we would actually, we're actually in the middle of creating a new knowledge base editor that a guy on the team that I work on, he's actually working with an editor. And so eventually we would like to put that in so that when someone's creating new content, not only, I talked about the findability piece, but it would be able to suggest tags for them while they're writing the document. So when they click submit, it will say, hey, we think your content is about this. And so what happens is that if the tags are right, then the findability becomes even better and you're able to locate things a lot better. So we're looking at that. We're using machine learning to, right now, we're using machine learning to be able to go through our Bugzilla tickets and Jira tickets for our developers and kind of match those up with KCS solutions to kind of, to kind of do that and make sure that, like, so if they do close a bug, then it wraps back around to make sure that the KCS is closed off, is updated correctly. So we are, we're looking at more and more ways to try to use machine learning because it's really exciting. It's like a nice big pretty wrench. So hopefully we'll be able to start pulling some of that stuff off soon. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thanks.
Yes, sir.
With the uptick in automation and a lot of automatic processes, how does that help you with regards to knowledge management?
Well, so the big thing for us with automation is, so we take KCS and we've kind of steered it in some different directions. So let me step back a bit and talk a little bit about our Insights program. So Red Hat has this program where if you give us permission, we will set up and we'll monitor your system for you. And then if we see anything that acts strange, then we will go ahead and either go ahead and have a solution for it, or we'll contact you and we'll attach a knowledge base article to it, telling you this is what you need to do to fix your system. And so that's what you'll get when you finish your coffee in the morning. You'll look in your system, you'll say, oh, I have 20 clusters failing. This is what I need to do to fix it. So we're really attacking automation doing that. And so that's really a big thing. We're really looking for it to kind of really even out our customer calls, kind of make customer sat go up. I mean, and it's the wow factor, right? So KCS is in the center of that. So we use KCS to our knowledge management to really kind of help us develop these insights rules that go out and help identify problems and then help fix the problem in the real world. Again, that's something the documentation can't really do, but it's something that we discover what happens in the real world. We'll say, oh, when we see this error, this is what it means. Can we fix it, or do we need the customer to do it? So that's one thing we've been working on for a while. That's pretty cool. I mean, I still get stars in my eyes when I see it work. It's kind of cool.
So I wanted to take a moment. We have some people who are joining us online.
Okay.
So I told them I was going to turn my speakers on. Anybody in the home audience have any questions that you want to ask? Mind you, you're all muted, but.
Truly, last point. Or Matt, start calling names.
Exactly. Just start calling them. Mr. Kelsey.
I am temporarily retired from that game. Thank you. All right, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to mute my speakers again, but if anybody watching remotely has questions, let me know and I'll unmute my speakers and you can ask. Anybody in the meeting room have any other questions?
Yay. That's my favorite part, by the way. I love the question and answer piece.
Yeah, I'm a recruiter. I think I introduced myself earlier, but so I talk to candidates of all aspects of IT. But for somebody, a help desk, desktop support type role, what steps should they be taking to get to a role like yours?
Or is
I
there
love
anything
this
you
question.
recommend?
I love this question because this is one of the things I talked about at the Wake Tech thing is I literally just started working in support. And because it just answering a bunch of questions and kind of learning all of this stuff, it became a necessity for us to create a knowledge management system where we were. So the big things to do is be really active in the knowledge base area and kind of understand how all that works. Now, I do have a PMP. I don't really use it all that much, but I do have one. But it does come in handy when you need it. Having a passion for helping people understand the world. Like, I love empowering people to do their jobs. That's what I love about knowledge management because the customer sat goes up, employee sat goes up because, you know, when someone's new, if you give them a knowledge base, they can find the answer to their questions a lot easier than going and having to bug someone to ask questions all the time and keep going. So I love that even experienced people, if they don't know something, they can get up to speed a lot quicker. So I think that you really have to have a passion for that to really kind of excel in it. And then it doesn't hurt to understand like databases and things like that. And reporting is a big one. So like when I was at McKesson, the company before this, you know, I had to learn business objects, Webby, and I had to know like things like SQL Server. I had to know things like a lot of project management type stuff. Now in here, I'm having to learn all kinds of different project management stuff. And then, you know, my gosh, I had to learn Linux again. I mean, I've been playing with Linux for years. I didn't actually have to learn how to do it professionally. I mean, not everyone's gonna have to do that, I think my point is that a lot of it is you just have to have the passion for the helping people learn stuff and documenting and sharing what you know. That's more important than the tech itself, I think. So the thing about knowledge management, though, I'll be completely frank, is it's such a niche field that if you're looking for someone in knowledge management, it's hard to find them because everyone's already got a job. But if you're actually looking for a job in knowledge management, it's hard to find a job in knowledge management because no one's really doing it by itself anymore. Like the days of the chief knowledge officer are long gone. I mean, those went to the 90s. So a lot of it's luck. So my point is that if you're looking for something in knowledge management and you happen to stumble across it, grab it quickly. So, and if you're trying to find someone if you're trying to, in the recruiting area, if you're really trying to look, it's just going to be a matter of rolling the dice, to be honest with you. And even at Red Hat, you know, we're trying to build up our knowledge management program, but I've already got people lining up at the door wanting to do it because they love it, right? So, I mean, I don't even know if we'd be looking externally anytime soon because it's sort of like people are banging at the door. What can I do to help? What can I do to help? What can I do to help? So, which is awesome for me, but you know, I like to think that it's probably my personality that helps.
We all agree.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned earlier that you gave a couple examples on, you know, cases go up, tickets go up, it starts getting deprioritized, right?
Yeah.
How do you change that mindset or show people that it should actually be prioritized and how important it is? Does that make sense?
It makes total
Yeah.
sense. You have to get buy-in from leadership. And not just that, but it has to be driven all the way down through the managers. Because if there's any break in that chain, it's done. And there's nothing you can do about it. Now, that being said, the optimal idea is to completely rebuild your workflows with knowledge management in mind. That's the ideal. That's what you want to do. It's a lot more difficult than it sounds, though. Believe me, I've tried it in several places, and it's brutal. But what I've also found, though, is if people are honest with themselves, then they'll see that they'll see the value in it just by using it. Like I remember at McKesson, I used to make a deal when we were onboarding teams. I make a deal with them. I'd say, okay, I know this is new and it's weird and you really don't want to do anything new. Give me a month. Just give me a month, try it for a month. And if you don't like it, I'll never bother you again. Out of 23 teams, I think I have one that backed out because they realize that if you try it and they realize, wait a second, you mean I don't have to answer the same question over and over again? Or wait a second, you mean that I can find the answers to something, or I don't have to start from ground zero every time I start a new case? I like that. And so if it comes from the ground up, then you have a lot better of a chance to get it to work. But again, if management's saying, yeah, close more cases, then you're going to sit there, you're going to close more cases. So again, it has to come from the managers, and it's what they measure. So if you're end of the year, if your end of the month paycheck or bonus relies on how many cases you just closed, then that's what you're going to worry about. Now, if it like there's a measure called case quality index where they'll do a random check and look at the entire case and say, well, was everything done? And that means not only was everything documented correctly, did you do your callbacks and stuff, but was knowledge management done? If that becomes part of what's being measured and you don't get full credit unless you do all of it, then people take that seriously. But it really you have to get buy-in on all levels, not just from the top management and not just from the managers. It has to go all the way through the chain, because once it breaks, then that's people's ends to say, hey, well, we don't have to do this. And I feel like the people in the room have experienced this before. So did that answer your question? Awesome. I told you guys to get excited about this stuff. I love it.
Which is why you're good at it.
Yes, we appreciate this.
What are the questions? Well, I will just stand here and look awkward.
Albert?
You're doing great.
Okay, look around.
Thanks.
So again, Albert, thank you personally from me for doing this. We appreciate it. From the chapter, from the board, we appreciate it. Sometimes it's challenging to be that first person when things come together. So as our first guest speaker, you have raised the bar very, very high. So we appreciate it. Thank you, all of you. I appreciate all of you. And we're here for about another 45 minutes. Hang around, get food, network. Beyond that, we will see everybody on November 2nd or 9th, just depending on when the next meeting falls. Find us on LinkedIn. Myself, pretty simple, Bigfoot Systems. Matt at bigfootsystems.net is my email. Look for the chapter. Come. Join us, and we will see everybody in November. Thank you all for coming out. We appreciate you.
That's man.
You kicked ass, man.
That was a lot of fun. You can tell. I love the questions part. That's fine. So sometimes I just want to just say, okay, ask me a bunch of questions.
You know what? And this being my first time, running a meeting, I was like, wait a minute, why did I not have him do Q&A? He's presented.